I'm Harrison Graham.
And I'm Chase Sr. We just launched a new show here at Chat Sports. We'll be going live every single Thursday, 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific.
So subscribe and join us every single week here on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/chatsportstv. This video you're about to watch aired from that live show, so sit back and enjoy. So Ben Simmons, will he get traded? That is the topic here at this moment. Harrison and Chase with you. Is he going to get traded? Where's he going to get traded to? You've been covering this a lot on our Sixers channel, and it's the gift that keeps on giving.
It's the gift that keeps on giving because we've been talking about these Ben Simmons trade rumors over the last several months because they've been nonstop ever since the Sixers flamed out of the playoffs. Where do you think he's going to get traded to? Chime in the comment section down below. The big question is, when is Ben Simmons going to get traded? I don't think it's if Ben Simmons is going to get traded. I just don't think that this relationship can continue. And coming up on today's show, we're going to take a look at 3 all-star caliber players who Ben Simmons could be traded for. Those are my 3. Harrison has his 3. I think Simmons is going to get traded at some point. It's just a matter of when, not if, because I don't know if this relationship can continue given how contentious it is between Simmons' party, now that Rich Paul is speaking out. He's demanded a trade after meeting with the organization, and also how the fan base has reacted to Ben Simmons' trade request.
And some of the later reports are that he's willing to fork over the $1.2 million or whatever it is if he skips training camp. He says we're prepared for that. That's coming out of his camp. So
that tells you everything you need to know.
He's holding
right?
out. He's not going to show up. It's either trade him or be stuck with a max player who's not going to show up, it appears. So I think he has to get traded. These are 3 guys that we don't believe are options anymore in a Ben Simmons trade because the value's gone down, because it's public now. Everyone knows he wants out. It would have been nice to get one of these 3 guys, Dame Lillard, James Harden, or Bradley Beal.
Yeah, the Sixers don't have a lot of leverage right now because all the teams across the NBA have seen that his stock is somewhat plummeted after that disastrous playoff showing against the Atlanta Hawks. And also, he's already requested a trade. He's willing to fork over money, as you said, to get dealt elsewhere. So the leverage is no longer on Daryl Morey's side, so that hurts them with what they can get back for Ben Simmons. But at one time, he was being talked about as a guy who was going to be included in that James Harden trade. The Sixers were close to pulling the trigger on that, but ended up not. How did that end up? Not good at all for Philadelphia. And I don't think Bradley Beal is a guy who you can get back for Ben Simmons, nor is Damian Lillard. So the point of the video today, some of those secondary options, but still all-star caliber players who the Sixers could net for Ben Simmons.
So we want to ask you this question, and then Chase is going to have 3 players that he thinks the Sixers could get in a trade for Ben Simmons. Then I'll have 3 guys. Is Ben Simmons a stiff? And on one of my shows recently on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel, I believe, was the definition of stiff is basically fraud, bum, or I should say synonyms of stiff is probably better. A guy who doesn't have what it takes. Is Ben Simmons that? I think the answer might be yes, at least when it comes to Philadelphia.
To me, he's a stiff because he has a boatload of potential, but he's failed to tap into it because I think he's a corner 3 away from being a superstar player. And the big reason why he's not a superstar is because Ben Simmons has neglected to work and expand and grow upon his offensive game. I always like to throw this comparison out there. You look at how Giannis has developed since he came into the league, Harrison. You look at how Jaylen Brown has developed over time.
Yep.
They have taken their offensive game to the next level because they've worked on their deficiencies, they've worked on their flaws, whereas Ben Simmons has actually, in my opinion, gotten worse since he came into the league, since being that number 1 pick a few years ago coming out of LSU. The one hole in his game, it's a jump shot. And he hasn't developed the jump shot. And that's a big reason why his development has kind of flatlined. It's been stunted, but also it's a big reason why the Sixers, with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons as a tandem, have failed to make it out of the second round of the playoffs.
So we're going to get into some Ben Simmons trade targets here. We'll start with Chase's 3 guys here. Chase, like we said, it's not going to be James Harden or Bradley Beal or any of these dudes, but take us through a couple of guys that you think that could make some sense for Ben Simmons.
Yeah, moving off of some of those superstars, we're pivoting now to all-star caliber players who I think the Sixers could trade Simmons for, because I do think his value is a lot higher than what people think right now. I think Ben Simmons can get back a C.J. McCollum, and I think that roster fit makes a lot of sense because then you have a future backcourt with Tyrese Maxey, who I think realistically this year with volume can average 15 to 20 points per game. And I think he can play on ball, off ball, which really complements CJ McCollum well. And I think McCollum, a guy who played locally at Lehigh, would fit in well alongside Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey as that backcourt. I'm really high on Colin Sexton. This is a guy who can average 20 to 25 points per game. He can score at all three levels. He's really dynamic as a playmaker. He's just been hidden and overshadowed by the fact that he plays in the bunker of Cleveland because nobody wants to play there. And then lastly, the biggest name I'd love to see the Sixers get outside of the Bradley Beal of the world or maybe a Damian Lillard is De'Aaron Fox. I love his explosion. I love his ability to kind of take over
games. Is he your favorite option
from an athletic
here?
standpoint. He would go down as my favorite option because I think he's the better player than Colin Sexton. I think he has a little bit more upside than a CJ McCollum. He's a little bit more well-rounded. I like his defensive intensity more than a guy like CJ McCollum. And De'Aaron Fox, like those other guys, it's a three-level score. And when you look at the Sixers over the last couple of years and the big reason why they've gone out so early in the playoffs and failed to make a deep run, they don't have a guy and haven't had a guy outside of Jimmy Butler who can break it down off the dribble, who can be a reliable creator and bucket getter late in games and at the end of shot clocks, because Ben Simmons hasn't been that guy. All three of those guys, what's the theme there? They can create for themselves as well as their teammates, and I think a lot of them still do have upside.
Talking some Ben Simmons trade targets here on Chat Sports. New show, Harrison, Graham, and Chase, every single Thursday, 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 Central Time. Make sure you subscribe to our Sixers channel, by the way, youtube.com/76erstv. I'll take you through three names I have come up with as well. And we'll start with D'Angelo Russell. There's been some chatter that the T-Wolves could have some interest in Ben Simmons, which I think is interesting. If they're going to get him, I think Russell has to be in that trade, especially now that Culver is gone, which that was weird, by the way, but whatever, that they shipped him out. I like D'Lo. He can score at all three levels. He can play on and off ball as well, so you could kind of, mix and match with him and Maxey if you want to go that route in the backcourt. I think that could be a fun point guard, shooting guard combination with him and Tyrese. Malcolm Brogdon, a player that I know you're very high on, Chase. He's got injury concerns, which your main player in Joel Embiid is always going to have that. So do you want that? Maybe, maybe not. He's a 50, 40, 90 threat every single year. Did that a couple of years ago. He's very impressive shooting the basketball, and he's a good defender, which I like, and I know the Sixers value. And then I kind of zagged when you zigged. You said De'Aaron Fox. I don't think the Kings will trade him, so I went Tyrese Halliburton, who was fantastic as a rookie. You pair him with Maxey, two second-year players in the same backcourt. I think their skill sets mix each other very, very well. You've got Joel Embiid still. I think these are some intriguing names. Sure, they're not the names that you would have wanted in a Simmons trade 6 months ago, but it ain't 6 months ago, man. Like, they missed the boat on the James Harden trade, unfortunately. So now you've got to shift to realistic options, especially if it's 100% true that Ben Simmons ain't coming back. Like, if he's quit on the organization, then you got to get what you can take. So I think that's what you got to do. Producer Jeremy has a question for us, so we'll mic him up here. Jeremy, what do you got for us?
So y'all went through y'all's possible trade scenarios. What's like the worst possible thing that could happen for the 76ers? Like, what's worst case scenario for the Sixers?
Worst case scenario is they get a package headlined by like DeJounte Murray of the San Antonio Spurs. I think that's the worst case scenario, and that's a trade idea that some people have thrown out there. Ben Simmons to the Spurs, you give him the keys to that organization, and you let him be the primary creator and playmaker on that team, and you surround him with a bunch of shooters. But to get back only DeJounte Murray when several months ago you were talking about Ben Simmons being in a trade for James Harden. The fall off from Harden to DeJounte Murray is astronomical. That would be a disaster.
That or not trading him and just not having him show up.
I just don't think the relationship can continue.
Yeah,
it could be worse than the Anthony Davis situation in New Orleans.
And that wasn't
nearly. And the James Harden situation in Houston when he shows up 25 pounds overweight and he's going to the strip club instead of practice.
I think he was wearing a bodysuit. I'm convinced. I mean,
he looked like Santa in those Red Rockets unis.
He gets to Brooklyn and he's in the best shape of his life 4 days later. I don't know what happened there, but
That's a good question, Chase.
Yeah, I mean, the worst case is you trade him and you don't even get an all-star back. I mean, that's, you get like a rotation guard as your headliner. That would be a disaster. So you can't trade him for just whatever, but you can't keep him. I mean, you're stuck if you're Philadelphia. You've got a couple of weeks until training camp here, so the clock's ticking. Joel Embiid can support him on social media if he wants. I don't think that's going to improve the situation. I'll tell you this. Chase Sr., my guy right here, big Sixers fan, he's going to keep you guys covered a lot throughout the rest of the offseason and on into the season. So subscribe. We'll have more shows like this during our Thursday live show as well that we will post on our Sixers channel. So go check out our Sixers coverage at youtube.com/76erstv. And let's ask this one more time. Is Ben Simmons a stiff? What do you guys think? Y for yes, N for no. Is he a bum? Is he a fraud? Basically, if you don't like him at this point, you're typing your Y for yes.
Exactly right.
So let us know in the comments and hit that subscribe button.